Folks, we have a crazy day on our hands. Inflation data is out. Tom Lee makes a new prediction. The debate that shocked the world, we have to talk about that as well a little bit, not too much. We will kind of keep it under 10 minutes today. I promise that, but I will cover everything. So, bottom line first, and don't click nothing, don't smash nothing, don't buy nothing. Listen up. Bottom line of inflation. We are exactly as expected. We are at 2.5% versus 2.9 in July. But even though we only went up zero point 0.2 in the month over month numbers, which was exactly as expected, core is actually 1/10 higher than expected. And that's going to have implications on what the Fed will say and do in the upcoming, in about 7 days, interest rate announcement. Now, look, beyond the fact that everybody understands that the Fed is going to cut rates, the one thing everybody was concerned about, everybody was talking about, was how much the cut is going to be, because you might get a cut that is 25 basis points, you might get a cut that's 50 basis points, with the inclination obviously towards the 25 basis points. In fact, I've gone on record many times on these videos, in my community, on Discord and Patreon, and I said, look, I think it's 100% that we get 25 basis points. The Fed is just too cautious. It's not in their DNA to go double down and do a 50 basis points right out of the gate, right? But what happened today actually solidifies my argument. So, number one, 2.5% is great. It's the lowest we've been since February of 2021, which makes Tom Lee right again that inflation is falling like a rock, and that a secondary wave of inflation is not on the cards. No matter how much the Fed tries to break this thing, they won't be able to bring on another wave of inflation. So that's number one. Number two, the problem is that even though we are as expected, which should be basically a neutral result, so the stock shouldn't move, the Fed shouldn't change nothing. But because core came in a little bit higher, right now, if you go to the Fed CME watch tool, you'll notice that the odds they have on a 50 basis point cut, which was at 30% before the data, it's now at 13, 14%. So it got slashed by half. So the Fed CME tool now has the 25 basis points at 85% versus 70% just a couple of minutes ago. So basically what happened, we had neutral numbers, inflation still coming down. In fact, if you look in the guts of this thing, under the hood, you'll find out it's mainly shelter that is a lagging indicator, is pulling it up in a way that's kind of unrealistic, but that's a whole different discussion. But the Fed will not be able, even if they had any of the slightest intentions to talk about that 50 basis points, probably not a good time right now, because core actually went up higher than expected. So that explains why the 25 basis points is now 100% option. There's not going to be 50 basis points. It's over. Now, we have to also talk about stocks. What's going on with stocks? What's going on with the market? And I do promise to talk about the debate. I promise I'll mention a few words about the debate, because we absolutely have to talk about what happened. Now, look, as far as the market goes right now, I think Tom Lee made it a very, very interesting post in his research paper he just put out. He basically said, look, folks, the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months, they're going to be very volatile. They're going to be a little bit like a turbulence, because what we have, a lot of uncertainty around elections. Look, going back on this debate thing, right? So the debate thing happened. Still, there's no clear answers. Who's going to be the next president? The race is wide open, right? So a lot of uncertainty in politics, a lot of uncertainty in geopolitics, a lot of uncertainty with the Fed, how quick they're going to actually cut rates. There's a lot of uncertainty, plus seasonality, which makes September one of the worst months, along with August, and so forth and so forth. So Tom is basically saying, look, the next couple of weeks are going to be rough, but based on the data he's seeing, he's saying one simple thing, saying, look, number one, inflation before August came out at 2.9%, we are already below the average of the U.S. inflationary status for the past 16 years. The average, the U.S. inflation is about 3.2%. Even though we want to be at 2%, we rarely are there exactly. We're always slightly higher. So the average U.S. inflation for the past 6 decades is 3.2%. Even before this data came out, we were below that, and now we are much below that. So inflation is falling like a rock, as Tom Lee said. GDP growth is decent. Unemployment is actually not getting worse as much as people thought. So if the Fed puts in a rate cutting cycle into these circumstances, then the economy is going to benefit. The economy isn't broken yet, which is going to benefit also the stock market. So the theory is quite simple, basically saying, look, by the time we are finished with the election uncertainty, by the time we actually get more clarity about what the Fed will do, towards the end of the year, that's going to be the relief rally. It's going to be like a valve. It's going to release all this pressure. And he also looks at a lot of data points, which I think are very interesting. He basically says, look, guys, we have data about what happens when the first year is so hot. Now, the S&P 500 did about 10% in the first half, I think like 14%. That happened a limited amount of times in history, like 23, 24 times. In those years, the second half was on average a 10% half. That's very, very good news for investors for this half of the year, because it means that despite kind of this weakness we've seen in September, despite the craziness we've seen in August, basically what we're seeing is a rally that's backloaded to the last 2 months of the year. The average return in August is negative 0.6% in these sort of years. It's 1% in September, but in years like this, November is about 2.3%, and December is about 3%. So if you look at the last couple of months, November, December, that's when you get that big 5% push upwards, which is just not the little what's going on there? I can't speak, which is just not just data driven, but it also kind of makes sense fundamentally if you look at it, right? Even though I'm not doing a good job with my tongue twisters today, but the man is right. Inflation is coming down. There's going to be more money influx into the system. Uncertainty about election is going to go away, and so forth and so forth. So I do agree with what he's saying. Today, what we had is basically an average inflation, as expected. So there's not going to be a lot of turbulence. Now, look, short term, the market may go up, may go down. I don't care about that. But I'm saying in general, basically, we're in cruising altitude, currently at cruise control, autopilot, whatever you call this. Now, I do want to say a few words about the debate. Now, as far as the debate goes, look, obviously, there's no doubt in my mind, everybody saw it, that Donald Trump did not get a fair treatment from the moderators. And don't get triggered by that. That's just a fact. However, equally a fact that Kamala Harris, regardless, irrespective of that, she did a good job. I mean, she nailed it. She had the better debate. Kamala Harris, I think, got out of there feeling that she had the better debate. And I agree with that. Watching that thing on TV, yeah, she had the better debate. And there's no excuses for Donald Trump. I mean, he didn't do as good, even though the moderators were assholes, whatever, right? So he didn't do a good job. She did a good job. So she won the debate. Now, what does this mean going forward? Well, it has two implications. Number one, for you as a potential voter, well, you have to ask yourself one simple question, right? If you are happy with the state of America today, which you may very well may be, right? If you're happy with the way things are today, if you're happy about the economics, if you're happy about the demographics, if you're happy about the geopolitics, if you want more of this, right? Well, you have a candidate that's been pretty much the acting president over the past couple of years, with Biden being pretty much MIA, right? So you're essentially voting for the same person that ran this policy to this point. So vote Harris, right? If you want to change and if you're unhappy with the way things are today, right, and you want things to be done differently, then Trump is your man. And the debate does not change that in any way thinkable, right? I do think, she's happy with the debate. Her folks, are happy with the debate. But push come to shove, the decision is very simple, right? The decision is, do you think America is in a good place and that she should get another 4 years? Or do you think we need to change? Simple as that. And I think that's the bigger question. And no debate isn't going to change it. And that's why I think we're not going to see another debate. I think that was it, folks. But hey, maybe they're going to surprise me. Maybe they do one more. I hope they do, because that was interesting and entertaining and cringe at times. I get it, but it is what it is. Now, thank you so much. I did it under 10 minutes as promised. We're at 9 minutes and 12 seconds. As I mentioned before, the Academy is currently closed. You cannot join until probably the end of September. We are full, but you are welcome to join our Discord, discord.gg/TomNash. It's all in the description. It's free to join. We'd love to have you as part of our 20,000 member community. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.